Hey, scholars. Let's talk about maintenance and reliability, chapter 17. We'll start with what is maintenance and what is reliability. Maintenance, of course, is are the functions that an operation manager takes to keep his or her equipment working properly and the cost associated with that. Reliability is the percentage probability that the machine or the system will in fact continue to function at its expected level. So when we look at reliability in the text, there's some, it's simple math, it's fifth grade math, but there's math that an operations manager uses to understand how reliable their equipment is. And essentially what the math is that you understand the piece parts of the system. So how reliable are the components, multiply those components together to get the reliability of the overall system. So if you had three components in a system, A, B, and C, A is 60% reliable, C is 70% reliable, and C is 80% reliable, you just multiply 0.6 times 0.7 times 0.8, and you get the overall reliability of the system. Now let's say, for instance, that what you want to do is you want to improve the reliability of the overall system. You don't have room for complete redundancy, but what you want to do is make it as reliable as possible. So you say that component A that was 60% reliable, you want to go ahead and put a redundant component A in, so now you have two component A's. So then the math, it's on page 655, but basically it's the probability of the first component working 0.6 times, and this 0.6 plus, and then parenthetically, times the probability of the second unit working, which is 0.6, times the probability of needing the second unit, which is 0.4. So 0.6 times 0.4 is 0.24 times or plus 6. So the overall reliability of that component went to 0.6 plus 0.24, 0.84. So it improved from 0.6 to 0.84 by adding a redundant component to the system. So hopefully in video that that works. But we talked in example 4 a little bit about reliability with parallel redundancy. Math's very similar. Just look at that and make sure that you know how to do it. Now we looked at maintenance also. So maintenance, what I want you to know more than anything there is you need to understand the total cost of maintenance. And then as an operations manager, you decide to maintain at whatever the minimum total cost is. So you've got two different costs associated with maintenance. There's the breakdown cost, and there's the cost associated with preventative maintenance. Preventative maintenance, think of an automobile. Preventative maintenance, changing your oil, putting air in your tires, things that we do, changing the transmission fluid, putting spark plugs in it. The basic things you do to maintain an automobile cost a certain amount of money. And if you were an operations manager and you were looking at that automobile and said, okay, well, it cost me $1,000 a year for the preventative maintenance on this vehicle, or I could say I'm going to drive this baby till the engine blows up without doing anything to it, and it'll last for 6 years, and it's going to cost me $8,000 for a new engine. And so then what you do is you look at it and you'd say, well, I could either pay $1,000 a year for 6 years, $6,000, or I can pay $8,000 at the end of 6 years when the engine blows up. Which one do I want to do? And it's a decision you can make. In that particular example, you would say I want to do the $1,000 a year because $6,000 is less than $8,000. So you should understand that. The book does a pretty good job of saying that you really need to take the total cost of maintenance of a breakdown into consideration. And most people would say, okay, it's going to cost me that $8,000, end of story. But what they don't take into consideration is then that machine, your car is going to be out of commission for 3 weeks. You're going to have to rent another car. You may do something more severe. You may blow your transmission out too. So there's a probability that it's going to be a higher maintenance level than what just the engine at $8,000 would be. So that pretty much is a wrap up of maintenance and reliability.